Hello and good evening. I'd like to say a warm welcome to my fellow Toastmasters and our guests looking in from home. We have quite an exciting evening in store. It's a secret your competition doesn't want you to know that we're going to share with you. This is sponsored by TV Toastmasters Club 9523, and we have several folks from our community involved, so we're really excited for an eventful evening, and we hope you get excited about Toastmasters as well. You can find out more about our club on www.tvtoastmasters.com. I'd now like to welcome our Toastmaster for the evening, Ms. Karen Isaacs. She is the director, or the District Program Quality Director, and also a distinguished Toastmaster. Please welcome Ms. Karen Isaacs.
Thank you, Michelle, for that wonderful welcome. Well, good evening, fellow Toastmasters here and on the air. We're very excited to be here tonight. We are going to learn, as Michelle said, some secrets that we can help put in our resource toolkit, our career toolkit, that we can pull out when we need it to make ourselves stand out from the crowd. So today we have an exciting meeting ahead of us. We have 3 speakers in addition to other members of our team that will be playing a vital part for a fantastic meeting tonight. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our person that will give us the word of the day, Ms. Carol Cormley. Carol?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guests, and our guests viewing at home. Our word of the day today is invigorate, and that means to energize. So instead of doing things halfway, you really put all you have into it and be invigorated, and people are glad to be with you when you are invigorated. My challenge to you is when you come to the lectern to speak, to use the word of the day, invigorate. And it's on the agenda on the lectern, invigorate. I will also be counting all the killer filler words, the ums, ahs, you knows. I also count lip smacks. When you end a sentence with a lip smack at the end, instead of a period, it's a lip smack. And I will be giving a report at the end of the meeting on how well we did with our grammar, our ums and ahs. If I hear you say some unusual thing that I thought was a really great description, I will also mention that. Madam Toastmaster. Invigorate.
Thank you, Carol, for giving us the word of the day to invigorate us to use that word throughout the meeting. Next, I would like to introduce the table topic Toastamonio from Emily Garrett. Emily?
Have you ever been in a meeting when your boss asks you a question and you were not prepared with the answer? That can be a frightening moment if you are not good at impromptu speaking. Our table topics help us get better at that and practice it. And one thing that employers love is positive attitudes. A lot of employees don't know that people don't want to hear you complain. So what we're going to do is I've got some topics of bad luck kinds of things that happen to you. And what I want you to do is make it into a positive experience. Do I have any volunteers? Veronica.
I won't shake her hand. You ready, Mom? When I lose my voice and I can hardly talk, then I have to use hands a lot. And if I can't use my hands, I can't talk. So this is what happens. But I try to keep very positive, and I also try to involve all our team members. Because when that happens, of course, they get to shine. And that's the wonderful thing about losing my voice. Thank you.
Gwendolyn, would you like to turn one?
Oh, I missed my flight. Lucky me. I feel invigorated now, so I can hang out here and wherever in Cincinnati and have some fun. I don't have to worry about ISIS or anything happening on the plane. So this is really great news for me. And I can just pop on my computer and have my meeting FaceTime or something. Skype, I guess Skype. So I'm excited that I get to stay here. This is a good thing. And I can always drive to a fun destination too. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Unfortunately, I didn't get the job, but you know what that means though? There's a better job out there waiting for me. I didn't get the job that I applied for because I wasn't ready for it. And there was another job out there that I'm more ready for, more prepared for. So instead, I'm going to go put a better effort into getting the job that I deserve to have.
Oh, well, I called the wrong phone number. Well, I know their phone works, so that's a plus. They're getting something for their monthly phone bill. I mean, wouldn't it be awful to be spending that money every month, sending it to the phone company and not even knowing whether you're getting something for it? Of course, then there are the people that I call and it is the right number, and they wish it was the wrong number because they don't necessarily want to talk to me, but that doesn't chase me away. I would wish them a nice day. I'm sorry I called you inadvertently. It's not so good when you redial it and it's wrong again. It's the same one. But I just renewed my membership in the human race, that's all. Madam Toastmaster, thank you.
Turn it back over to our Toastmaster.
Great job, Emily. Many of us can relate to those particular scenarios. Table topics helps us learn how to think on our feet. And when things like that happen, we know how to respond appropriately. This is our practice area. That's what Toastmasters is all about. So thank you, Emily, for those fantastic table topics. Next, we will enter the presentation session of our Toastmasters meeting. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 fantastic presentations that will give you some information for the secret to add in your career toolbox. First up, I'd like to introduce a woman that has a lot of experience in Toastmasters. She is currently the president of TV Toastmasters. She has held every role, every club officer role except the public relations role. Whew. She's a busy woman. She's been in Toastmasters for 6 years, and she's currently working on her project number 10 in her Competent Communicator Manual. I would like to introduce our first speaker for the evening, Michelle Lewis, who will be talking to us about delivering memorable presentations. Delivering memorable presentations, Michelle Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. In the words of Mark Twain, there are two types of speakers, the nervous ones and the liars. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest. Research shows that public speaking outranks death in the fears of people. That's crazy. But I do remember my very first presentation at my job that I hold today, and it was about 10 years ago. I was presenting to a group of technical people, and it was a marketing presentation. And I can still feel the blood in my cheeks, the tightness in my chest, the sweaty palms. It was disastrous. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details, but I can tell you that I survived it. I'm here to tell you about it today. I didn't die from it. Today I'm going to share with you some tips on how to make your presentations memorable. I'm not going to tell you how to get rid of the anxiety and the nerves, because the nervousness may always be there. In fact, it could be a good thing. But I'm going to give you some tips that might make your presentations more memorable and help you be more confident when you take the stage. I'm now going to show you a quick video clip, and then I'll get into my first tip.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the Great Depression, passed the tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone
How many of us have
know
been
what
in...
Vice President Bush called this in 1980?
How many of us have ever been in a presentation like that, where literally you felt like putting your head down and drooling on the table? Regardless of the topic, you can make it interesting if you put energy into it. So my first tip is put energy into it. It's not about running around, doing cartwheels, jumping up and down. There's so many different ways you can add energy. We practice this all the time in Toastmasters. Vocal variety, adding humor, pauses. Pauses can add energy, right? They can make it suspenseful. They can add drama. In fact, one of our Toastmasters last week, Gwendolyn, she added energy. She yodeled at the beginning of her speech. Vocal variety, humor. We all laughed. It was a little bit out of character, but it resonated with us. You really left us thinking about what you're going to speak about, and you captured our attention. They say you have 10 to 15 seconds to capture somebody's attention, to get your value proposition across, and make sure they continue to listen. In the days of iPhones and laptop computers, we've got a lot of competition in meetings and in presentations, so adding energy is extremely important. I'm going to go on to number 2, the KISS principle. KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Keeping it simple is important. They say 3 to 4 max points need to be driven to you, because if not, you'll forget about it. Adding complexity does not make you sound smarter. In fact, you lose people. Oversimplify, not overcomplicate. I'm going to give you an example. Can you show me the next slide, please? Does this resonate with you? The KISS principle. Are you going to remember that? But how many presentations have we seen where there's so many words on there, and then we walk out and we don't even remember what we saw? In the first 10 minutes of a presentation afterwards, 50% of what was said is forgotten. But now let's look at the next slide. Will you remember that? You've got the lips. You've got a simple little acronym. You've got a visual that keeps it simple, and it helps people think about the point you were trying to get across. My third tip, tell a story. Everybody loves a story. Stories humanize you. They evoke emotion. That story I referred to in the opening of my presentation was my very first technical presentation, and it wasn't because I wasn't prepared. It was because my boss asked me to memorize verbatim somebody else's presentation. A global marketing presentation that was fluffy. It was not my style. And I tried. I practiced. I had every word down. And then my mind went blank. Memorizing's not a good idea, and memorizing somebody else's work is not a good idea. So then I reverted to the next thing, which was read off of my slides. They were all mixed up. It was a disaster. I think everybody felt so bad for me, including my boss, that he actually didn't even get mad at me or fire me. But I left there that day saying, I'll always make it my own. Make it your own. Tell a story, make it your own. Keep it simple. Show energy. And last but not least, practice. Seems like the obvious, right? Sumner's White, 90% of what happens or how good a presentation goes is the result of what happens before the presentation. Pretty interesting. Practice, and I'm not talking about flipping through the deck, glancing at the slides, because I know I've done that. I'm sure each and every one of you has done that. And then when you go to present, all of a sudden you forget what you were going to say. Say it out loud. Hear yourself say your presentation, your speech. Stand up. Use your gestures. I was telling Gwendolyn today, I used to have an office, there was no windows, and I could literally stand in there and I would present, and now my office has glass, and I'm sitting here like, I can't do it in my office, but I've got to find a place to practice. It's really important. And the entire drive here for 45 minutes, I talked out loud to myself. I'm sure everybody around me thought I was crazy, but I heard myself say it, and it's easier to recall what you were going to say. Do not memorize, like I said earlier, familiarize. Completely two different tactics. Know what you're going to say, repeat it to yourself, get comfortable with the important points you want to make. And I can tell you this, you can memorize your opening. Nail your opening. Be ready to get it done, and then everything else will flow. With practice, keep track of the time. We do this in Toastmasters. We have a timer. We keep in a lot of time. Have you ever walked out of a meeting and been like, oh, that was so short? No, you're like, no, it was so long. They could have gotten that message across in half the amount of time. That's why we practice it. We need to be simple. We need to keep energy in it. Kiss, energy, tell a story, and practice. Do you want to just flip it to the last slide? I have a nice little quote, but I was thinking a lot about this, and these aren't scientific ways to do well in a presentation. And I was thinking about it. It's art, right? Speaking and presenting is an art. And I think Toastmasters is the canvas. It doesn't make the masterpiece, but you hold the paintbrush. And you have the ability to make a masterpiece. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about Toastmasters and what it can do for you. Madam Toastmaster.
Michelle, that was fantastic. Those were wonderful tips that we can all use to become better presenters. And ultimately, Toastmasters, as you mentioned, Michelle, is a canvas where we can practice. It's okay to make mistakes here, but in the real world, we want to be our best. And so thank you for sharing those wonderful tips. Again, that was tip number one, presentation number one for the secret that your competition doesn't want you to know. Do you want more?
Yes.
Fantastic. So for our second presentation, I would like to introduce a gentleman. You know, Toastmasters, we're very busy. I'm sorry. We're going to take a moment for a break so we can do our evaluations, and then we'll have our second presentation. We are now up to our second speaker. Again, we're going to learn some more secrets that the competition doesn't want you to know. First, we learned how to deliver memorable presentations, but now we're going to learn how to have effectiveness in meetings. Our next speaker is currently the VP of Membership for TV Toastmasters. He is a member also of another club, the NIOSH Club. He has been in Toastmasters, believe it or not, for a number of years, 23 years. That's fantastic. That means he is a seasoned Toastmaster, and we can learn a lot from him. He has held every office in the club. He has been an area governor twice, and he's also held as I mentioned, every club officer job twice. Another busy person. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Steve Arnhaus to talk to us today about effectiveness in meetings. Steve Arnhaus, effectiveness in meetings. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, our guests, those of you looking in from home. Well, I am going to display Michelle's KISS principle in my presentation today. We're going to talk a bit about effectiveness in meetings. When I was researching my topic to put this together, I realized that we could actually have a couple of day-long seminars on doing effective meetings, and I'm not going to do that because I don't have that much time, first of all. But if you give me my next slide, which is not going to have anything on it, because I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction for the next slide, which we're going to talk about. We're going to start by talking about the plague of dysfunctional meetings. So I'll take my next slide, please. The typical American professional attends 60 meetings a month or more. Now, I'm sure some of you probably feel like you've done that many in a day sometimes, but I thought that was a rather phenomenal number. I'm not sure when you're supposed to actually get your work done. And the second point here is that approximately 50% of that meeting time is wasted. Michelle had said to us about how seldom we come out of a meeting and say, well, that was way too short. But I think that that's another very telling consideration. And that 39% of the people attending meetings doze off during the meeting. I went looking for a few little visuals, and that's why I got the one down here where everybody has these coming out. Especially after lunch meetings, those are particularly lethal because most of your blood is in your stomach. And if you're struggling to stay on cue with whatever is being presented, it is a challenge. Next slide. Well, we know what some of the dysfunctions are of meetings. So I want to give you a couple of cues on how to have effective meetings. And we're going to talk about something that I like to use. You can actually elaborate on each one of these 3 points, and I will do a little bit of that for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a PAL for your meeting. And we're talking a PAL. First slide, or my next slide, please. The first thing that you want to have with a meeting when you're planning it is have a purpose. What are the goals of that meeting? Who needs to attend it? And is there any advance or special preparation that you need to do for it? I mean, you don't need to have everybody there if you're only going to talk to a couple of people. And you have to have some specific goals, because otherwise you're going to wind up in one of those meetings that goes on forever. You'll get sidetracked. And you'll be stuck trying to figure out, okay, how do we disengage from this meeting? So you want to have a purpose. Next slide, please.
You should talk about that.
I think the fun
cartoon
thing
is
to
so
go on
funny.
people on TV to see the comic.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, the first cartoon was an individual who was sitting at the end of a boardroom table, and of course there was nobody else in the room but that individual. And he stated that the purpose of that meeting was to talk about absenteeism at meetings. So he didn't have much of an audience. So I'm sorry if that didn't come across on television quite the way I wanted it to. And we'll talk a little bit about what Toastmasters does for you as far as your ability to run meetings. But the next point in your PAL is to have an agenda. And you really want to have a written one, even if it's just for you, because that way you have a map of what you're going to be covering in your meeting. You want to know how many topics you need to cover. My graphic here is of a planner, and I think this planner is actually multitasking here. But when you put down an agenda and you have the topics you want to cover, often you'll start to realize whether it's reasonable to cover all of those topics in the time that you're allotting for this meeting. Because unless you're planning an all-day affair to talk about something, and even then you still need an agenda, it is not too good to have unlimited number of topics. Probably want to limit it to maybe 4 or 5 at the most, depending on how large they are. You also need to decide if there are specific assignments that you need to make for this meeting. And I'll come back to this a little bit later, but if there are some people that are going to be attending that will have a specific role, you need to decide that ahead of time. Don't spring it on them when they arrive, because it probably won't be too welcome from their part. I'll take the next slide, please. Well, you have to have limits on your meeting. Remember, we don't want to have an endless meeting. Manage the meeting by the clock. Allocate time chunks to the different parts of your agenda. And you're going to have to be possibly a bit ruthless if this topic starts taking on a life of its own, which is why I have use a parking lot. That's a place where you can put off-topic items. Something you may want to come back to later, or maybe it's a good suggestion, but this is not the time that you really want to go into that. You don't want to discard the idea, because it might be something that is really good, but you can deal with that later and put that in your parking lot. Also, pre-wire important points and decisions. If you have a meeting and the purpose is to make some weighty decision, or you want some specific input from people, remember I had mentioned that you want to know who and if you have advanced preparation. This is an instance where you want to go around and talk to people individually. It'll take you a little more time as far as preparing before your meeting, but talk to them if you want them to be thinking about something in particular. Do you want them to maybe have researched something a little bit so that they can bring particular comments to the meeting for that point? Then when you have your meeting, you've got some people there that are already prepared to present a topic that you want brought up. Or for a decision, you'll have different vantage points going into that decision so that when you ask people to help make this decision, you're not first starting to cast around and find out what the general thinking is. Take notes for yourself and give yourself some time to write them, either during the meeting or right after. Sit down with a little bit of quiet time and jot down all the different things that you can remember. One of the things that I'm still working on is legible writing. That's the other thing. You're trying to scribble stuff down, and afterwards you go and look at it, and what in the world was I thinking about here? I can't make this out. And then follow up. It'll take a little bit of time as well, but if there were things that you assigned in the meeting or you want to follow up on, you need to do that so that you have the follow-through on your meeting. You didn't have this meeting just so people could hear you talk. Well, I'll take the next slide, please. How can Toastmasters help you with this? There's several things. We practice running our meetings on the clock. We have to learn to talk within the time that we're allocated, and I'm running out right now. Time limitations on speaking roles. Assign some limits in your agenda. You also have to deal with challenges and changes. I ran into that tonight when I came in here, and the room was not at all like I wanted it to be. You also run into things like, I have someone helping me with my slides because I am over here, the cord is not nearly that long, so I cannot switch my slides. My arms are not 18 feet long. You will receive supportive feedback from people in the club, and you have an opportunity to see how other people do things. So there are maybe things that you've never thought of or you haven't seen done before, and it might be something you want to apply. Next slide, please. But Toastmasters can help you to avoid feeling like this when you are asked to host a meeting, run a meeting, or speak in front of a group. Final slide, please. And you'll be prepared to have all your chickens running together, at least as much as is humanly possible. Madam Toastmaster?
That was an excellent presentation, Steve. PAL, Purpose, Agenda, Limits. These are great topics and notes for us to prepare for effective meetings. As you mentioned in the slide, yes, a good portion of our day and time is wrapped up with meetings and just trying to manage our time. So these tips are very, very good to help us manage and take care of our time. I would like to take a minute for the evaluation, please. Our third and final presenter for this evening is a fairly new Toastmaster. She has been with Toastmasters since October of 2015, and she's already working on her third presentation. That's fantastic. She is currently the secretary for the TV Toastmasters, and she will be working on project number 3, Get to the Point. She will be speaking to us today about improving your listening skills. As a leader, listening skills are very, very important. And if you want to be an effective leader and communicator, you need to learn how to have effective listening skills. So take out your pen and paper and take some notes because Gwendolyn Neeson will be sharing with us improving your listening skills, Gwendolyn Neeson.
When I think of Toastmasters, I think of strong communication skills. I joined Toastmasters to improve my self-confidence and my communication skills. However, I found the area I really needed improvement was to grow in my listening skills. It sounds like a simple concept. I'm not an extraordinarily loud person, and I thought I was a good listener. But this simple idea has been actually the most challenging and life-changing thing that I've learned. There have been numerous things that have helped me to become a better listener, but I've pinpointed 3 that have really helped to invigorate me. The first one is simply to be quiet. The second, to be present and focused with the person that I'm with or the person that's speaking. And the third is to ask questions. I have learned the value of silence. In the past, I found myself trying to fill empty space or not appear unintelligent because I don't have anything to say. But now I understand that true wisdom is found in being silent. Lawrence Lovaczyk, an author and a priest, made it his life mission to help people become closer to God and to feel His presence in their lives. He stated over and over in his writings, if you want to have wisdom, you will learn to be quiet. The second most important thing I had to learn was to really be present and to stay focused. I now recognize how often I would let the cares of the world, my worries, drift into my mind while somebody else was in front of me talking, assuming that I was listening with a whole heart and a clear mind. I asked my daughter to give me an example of a time that she felt hurt because I didn't listen to her well. She's a teenager, so I was probably asking for it, but I was not prepared for her response. She responded back to me, all the times you ignored me. I love my daughter. I love my children. I would never intentionally hurt her. I would never intentionally hurt my children. To ignore somebody is a serious thing. For somebody to feel they've been ignored, it makes them feel uncared about. It makes them feel unloved. It makes them feel like they don't have value or worth. I would never do that to my children. But this is exactly what I've done. By multitasking, by cooking dinner and saying, by reading a book and nodding my head while she's telling me something important about her day. My daughter interpreted my failure to listen as a failure on my part to care. Children and every person needs to feel cared about. When we feel cared about, we feel loved. Love invigorates us. I mean, I've had people in my life act like I didn't exist or pretend they didn't know me, so I know what being ignored feels like. And this is not how I intended for my daughter to feel. I now understand the significance of the story of Mary and Martha. Martha was busy. She was cooking and cleaning, and she was serving our Lord. But she got exasperated, and she was frustrated and angry. And she asked Jesus for help because her sister was sitting there, not working, not cleaning, not cooking, but just listening. Jesus validated her feelings as she was angry and hurt. He acknowledged all the hard work she's done. And then he also informed her the most important thing was what Mary was doing, was listening. The simplest of all concepts. A lesson so simple and so easy, a child could understand it. Just listen. The way I've been able to maintain focus and to be present currently now is to be aware of my thoughts. When somebody is talking to me and I start thinking about the things I have to do or all the worries that are trying to ascend on me, I banish them and refocus on the person in front of me. When someone else is speaking, I now give them my full attention. I want others to know that I do care. And by listening, I let them know that I do care. Scott Peck, who was a psychologist and an author, said you cannot truly listen to anyone and do anything else at the same time. Finally, I believe you need to ask questions. When you ask questions, it shows you care. You care about the other person. You care about what they're saying. And you make an emotional investment in the conversation. Once I started listening with my heart, other people became more important to me. My relationships with family, friends, and coworkers improved significantly. Because I do more than just say that I care, I demonstrate it by listening. I show people that I actually do care. So since I joined Toastmasters, I recognized the value of listening by being quiet, by being present and focused, and asking questions. And this is how I've become a better listener through Toastmasters.
Gwendolyn, what a powerful presentation. Skills, listening skills, something so simple that we can not only use in our professional life, but also in our personal lives. So thank you for sharing that message with us. We'll take a minute, actually, for evaluations. Fellow Toastmasters, we have heard three fantastic presentations with skills that we can build on and skills and points and tips that we can add to our toolkit. The next portion of our meeting is the evaluation portion, and this is where we learn how to improve our skills in speaking. I would like to invite our first evaluator, our general evaluator who would lead our evaluation team, Mr. Rick Barron.
I have the best role of the meeting. Absolutely the best role. Because I believe that leading the evaluation team is the most important role there is in the meeting. It separates those who get what they want from those who take what they're given. And that is the simple process of feedback. And that's what we do in Toastmasters. We provide feedback to those who have come up here and shared their hard work and their preparation and their presentations with us in a number of different ways. So if you're out there wondering how you can separate yourself from your competition, ask for feedback. The only way that you can grow is to ask others how you performed. And in Toastmasters, we build that in to the agenda. And I have the pleasure of leading a team who I hope will invigorate those who spoke today by sharing their thoughts on what they did well and how they can possibly improve. The first member of my team today is Jennifer Monroe, who will be evaluating Michelle Lewis's speech.
I do want to start off by saying thank you for having me today. I am a guest, and I have felt very welcomed, and everybody has been very friendly. So for those of you out there, I hope you do join, and I hope you do come here because everybody's been very friendly. On my speech, or on my evaluation, I am doing the evaluation for Michelle's Deliver Memorable Presentations. The questions asked are, was this speech topic relevant to the occasion selected? And I said she did an excellent job on this. The next one is, did the speaker understand and express the feelings and needs of the audience? I stated also that she did it excellent, and I like how she expressed all of our fears as she started the speech and put in there the first part of, more people are afraid of public speaking than dying, which was kind of interesting. The next I have is, was the speaker forceful, confident, and positive? I think she did a fantastic job standing up here. Could not tell that she had any fears in her at all of public speaking. She looks like a professional from my standpoint. Did the speaker effectively use stories, anecdotes, and or quotes to help convey his or her message? She did. She did an excellent job of that, and the quotes that she had along with her personal story of her first technical presentation, which I don't know how you did that. Did the speaker's words convey strong, vivid mental images? She did an excellent job on that. Did the speaker's use of body language enhance his or her message? I think she did a great job on that too, not standing directly behind the podium, moving around a little, using her hands. I think all did a great job. Did the speech uplift the audience and motivate them as the speaker intended? Of course, she did an excellent job on that. I felt very motivated when I was done listening to her speech, like I can go give a speech to anybody. What could the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? I don't feel that she could have done anything differently. I think she did everything very well. I think the speech was delivered perfectly, honestly, in my opinion. And what did I like about the speech? I like the speech, the 4 facts that she had, the 4 main points that she pointed out. And although she said most people forget 50%, I forgot 25%. So I remember the pauses, the keep it simple, stupid, and the stories, and I can't remember the 4th one. So I at least got 75%, right? And that's all I have for her.
Thank you, Jennifer. Evaluating an experienced Toastmaster is difficult at best. Someone who has rehearsed and practiced and created a style that makes it hard, definitely makes it hard. So we don't envy Joni Buchanan, who must now come up and evaluate Steve Aaronholtz's speech. Joni.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters here in the group, Steve. Little did I know I would have the opportunity to evaluate one of my best friends. So it was quite an achievement on my part and happiness that I was able to do this with you. First of all, the one was about visuals. The visuals that you had on the screen were very, very colorful. They weren't all the same colors. They were mixtures. There were cartoons. It made humor. So it was really good. The part of the visuals that I had a little problem is you wrote a lot of words on that screen. On certain ones, you had like 4 or 5 lines of data. I would have liked to see fewer ones, and instead of that, I would have liked to have seen you write it on a piece of paper to hand out to us. So that we didn't have to write the information down, but we would be able to take something home with us. And remember, those are the ways that we could improve to make our meetings more effective. I thought that was really good. You use acronyms, KISS, PAL, and that will stay with us because we'll remember what the small little 3 or 4 digit words mean to us. I thought you did really well. The only handshake I had, and I was sitting over there, is I could see you with your hands doing something. I would have liked to seen you do more. A visual is anything that you use. What's the biggest thing you have to use? Your body. So when you do an effective meeting, you have a podium here. It kind of hides you. But if you get out and show people what you're doing and how to do it, and then say, hey, here's what we do. I wanted to give you humor. Here it is. And really use your body, because many times we don't take the advantage of knowing that our body is a visual too. So in the future, you might want to think about that, because you're a tall person. Great colors tonight, really good colors tonight. And I think you need to feel more comfortable. I think you were trying to teach us instead of sharing with us ideas of what you know is very powerful. So if you just calm down a little bit, slow down a little bit, because you were trying to get so much out in a period of time, and sometimes if you just stop a little bit, calm down a little bit, tell yourself, I got to tell people something, but I want them to understand it. You know, I want them to feel comfortable with it. And many times we want to dish it out, but we don't know if everybody's getting it. So if you just slow down just a little bit, you had a lot of information. I'd love to have copies of those visuals you had, because all that information is very critical in order to make an effective presentation. So you did accomplish it. I thought you did really well with the visuals. Just remember, you know, the paper is good, the visual is good, but you're a visual too. Great job. Hope to hear from you soon.
We've all probably heard the quote, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." It's all about getting started. And it's all about saying yes when someone asks you to do something. And that's what we heard from Gwendolyn today. A public event, here with potentially people that she doesn't know, in an unfamiliar environment, giving her third speech in Toastmasters. Wow. That's what Toastmasters is all about. Stepping outside your comfort zone and saying, yes, I'll try that. To hear how she did, Diego Martinez will provide an evaluation of her speech. Diego.
Well, Gwendolyn, thank you so much for not only having your third speech, but also inspiring us. One of the purpose of your speech is trying to get a purpose. You need to persuade, you have to entertain, and also inspire. And you did all the four things. So that's the first thing that you did perfectly. One thing is the speech development. You were very clear in the first thing that we needed, being also to listening, be quiet, be focused, and also ask questions. That's the good thing and the good introduction in order to that you can continue your speech development. The part that I really like it was how you effectively get to the part that you prove with your emotions and you bring the story of your daughter involved too. So that tell me that not only you're telling very sincere from your heart, but also something that is happening and you already have correctness about that part. So that's an excellent point. The other part was the physical. It was very confident from you, even though you were only stay here. But that's important that you were focusing and reading. And as soon as you said something regarding that the pauses and the silent, you intentionally were doing pauses, and I didn't hear obviously the arms. We'll see after that, but you technically by purpose was doing that part very well. The other part is you mentioned about your voice. You were not louder, but you were perfectly. The tone was great, and there was a good point that I was very close and I was listening completely fine. One thing that your strengths, and I want to that you continue building, is you're a life learner. This is only your third speech, but seems like you have so many things that you will going far from this. It was very professional. I can see that you are going to develop more skills in that regard, but the one that you just selecting that was the listening is the one that we started basically in one of the CL book. So may aware that there is a lot of materials about listening, and that's one of the things that you give also your inspiration, your accounting. Last thing was you mentioned about the priest. That example is perfectly because you always see that the priest is always listening to you and come one person and then come another person and come another person. So it was fantastic to me. I can relate in, hey, I want to sometimes listen more. And the last thing, the improvement recommendations, maybe in the conclusion, just get to memorable 1, 2, and 3, and maybe extend a little more about the questions. I didn't really. You get the number 1, listening, the pauses, the focusing, and ask the question. But maybe another example that you can throw it up, and then at the last part, just mention the 1, 2, 3. And then you will be, and then just nice. So looking forward for your next speech, and you are on the way to get to the next one, which is how to say it. So you're fantastic speak today, and I appreciate it that you share with you from your heart to the audience. So thank you so much.
As a general evaluator, I have the opportunity to share some comments as well. The 2 Toastmasters who gave visual presentations, what did you notice? You didn't see the back of their head. The majority of the people who use PowerPoint spend the entire time going, and my next point, my next point, my next point, right? So congratulations to the first two speakers on making sure that we knew that they were the presentation, not the PowerPoint presentation. The other thing, Gwendolyn, that I noticed was Gwendolyn has graduated from paper notes to note cards, right? Third speech, she graduated from paper notes to note cards. If you think back, she started with the note cards, right? As soon as she got rolling, did you see the note cards again? No. So as soon as she got comfortable with her speech and got really into the meat of what she had to share, she was sharing from in here, not from the cards. And that's one of the secrets that Michelle talked about. Tell stories. And that's what she did. She got up here and she just shared a personal experience that, as Diego talked about, was very emotional and really hooked the audience. Congratulations, Gwendolyn. Very advanced technique. Overall, putting a meeting like this on takes a lot of coordination, a bunch of effort, and in many cases we're dealing with logistics that we're just not familiar with. Today was no exception. Whether it was the screen up and down, how to black out the projector, dealing with the fact that I couldn't get the chip in the camera to record correctly, we did okay. We started about 7 minutes late. But still, those challenges persist. And in many cases, I think they just add spice to the event. It truly is the secret that separates those who get what they want from those who take what they're given. And that is the concept of feedback. So if you're sitting out there wondering how you can separate yourself from the competition, just ask. Just ask. Or join us at Toastmasters, and we'll help you with that process by providing you feedback so that you can watch yourself grow. I'll now turn it back to our Toastmaster, Karen Isaacs.
Thank you, Rick, to you and your team for an encouraging and motivating feedback session. To me, the feedback is the most valuable part of Toastmasters. This is where we learn what our strengths are and areas of improvement. So for each and every one of our presenters today, people pay thousands of dollars for information that they share today. But if you join Toastmasters, it's a fraction of that cost. And we had a fantastic meeting today. Those of you who joined us on the air, we would love to see you in person. So we encourage you to come and visit us. And with that, I'll turn it over to our president, Michelle.
Let's give our Toastmaster a round of applause. Great job. Well, the secrets are out, and did we have fun spilling the beans? But you guys can have fun too looking in at home. So please check us out at www.tvtoastmasters.com. We'd love to have you join us at a meeting. What a fantastic meeting. It was fun. Everyone participated. We thank you for our guests who joined us today, some old faces in the audience. And again, this concludes our meeting, the secrets your competition doesn't want you to know. Thank you.